Hey guys, Michelle Glass here. Our topic for this presentation is to explore the last of our biological themes. This is our last installment in our Lecture 1 series. We have already talked about the core theme of biology as being evolution, but that is not the only theme. I'm going to start by listing our remaining themes, and then I'm going to give some more explanation about each one of those. So let's get started. So the first theme for us to talk about here is the flow of information. We will also see structure and function being related as a common theme, the transfer and transformation of both matter and energy, and then finally interactions between and within systems. So these are all themes that we will explore this semester and continuing that exploration if you take Biology 2. So let's look first at flow of information. Primarily the way that we see information flowing is through the DNA molecule. DNA stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. And I think I've already mentioned that this molecule is found in all cells. So whether you're in domain archaea, bacteria, or eukarya, we see that this molecule has the same structure and the same function in all of those cell types. We're going to talk just a little bit more about DNA here, and then we'll have a whole chapter on it toward the end of the semester. So we'll get just a little preview and then much more detailed later. So your DNA molecule is a double helix, and the double part is referring to the two strands of the molecule, and then the helix is, of course, referring to the spiral shape. Now, if instead of looking at this as the helix, if you straighten it out, you have something that looks very similar to a ladder. And in that case, we talk about the backbone or the sides of the ladder as being composed of sugar and phosphate molecules, and then we see the rungs of the ladder as being composed of nitrogenous bases. Now there are 4 possible bases in DNA molecule. You will see adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, and we use the first letter of each of these bases for abbreviation. So I'll talk about these as A, T, C, and G, or G for guanine, C for cytosine, so I switched those up. Okay, now when we are looking at our DNA molecule, it is a very long molecule, and it has a functional unit in the molecule called a gene. And the gene is the part of the molecule, the sequence of DNA that tells the cell how to make the proteins. And we would consider the gene then to be the basic unit of inheritance. So when we talk about inheriting information from our parents, you are getting this genetic sequence in the form of this gene. Now, genes are composed of what we can think of as words. We're going to, in the future, call these codons, but I haven't put that term here for you yet. Your words on your gene are composed of those bases. So we'll see them in groupings of 3 bases together. So like ATA would be a word, CCG would be another word when we're talking about our gene. And this is how the cell then is going to read across the DNA molecule, use that information in order to construct the proteins that are necessary for that cell. This whole process of using the DNA molecule to make a protein has 2 key steps. So we're going to see that the first process is called transcription. Transcription is going to start with the DNA molecule. You'll use that to convert it into what's called mRNA, and the lowercase m, capital R, capital N, capital A, stands for messenger RNA, or messenger ribose nucleic acid. And then we're going to take that molecule and do a second process called translation in order to form our protein. This whole process of transcription and translation, going from DNA to mRNA to a protein, is referred to as gene expression. So that's the process of actually taking the information in the form of DNA molecule and converting it into a functional protein that the cell can use. So this is talking about how information is flowing from one molecule to another. And then in the case of heredity, from one cell to another cell, or one generation to another generation. The gene expression, the making of those proteins, is going to be influenced by external signals. So you might get some external signaling from sunlight or sound or chemicals to trigger gene expression. And you might also see internal signals triggering gene expression. So just tasting something sweet tells your body you're getting ready to eat sugar. That carbohydrate is digested in the stomach, so that food entering the stomach is going to trigger some gene expression. Changes in blood pressure can trigger gene expression. So when we talked about being able to respond to your environment, or when we talked about being able to regulate your internal environment, we're going to see gene expression as a key part of that. Our next theme to explore a little bit more is the idea that structure and function are related. And another way to say this is form fits function, and that's nice because of that alliteration. When we talk about form fits function, what we're saying is that the anatomy, the appearance, what something looks like, is related to its job or its physiology. And so what this means is you can study the physiology of something, and that can help you to understand why it is shaped or looks the way it does. So understanding the physiology can give you insight into the anatomy. But the reverse of that is also true. Understanding the anatomy can give you insight into the physiology. And so as scientists, we're interested in studying both of these parts. You'll have some biologists that are just anatomists, just focusing on the appearance. And you have some some biologists that are just physiologists. Then you have those that are looking at both pieces together. You can study this from either the microscopic level or the macroscopic level. So micro is teeny tiny, so that means you need the microscope. Macroscopic is macro is big, so that's something that typically you can see with the naked eye. Now, studying both anatomy and physiology and the relationship of the two pieces helps you to better understand your organism. It also can be used to help you with your taxonomic classifications. How are these organisms related? How do they fit in these taxonomic groups? And then also we can use this information to help us better understand how that organism is adapted to its environment, how the environment has played a role and what it looks like. So looking at those interactions between our organisms and our environment can also help us have a better understanding here. Next, we need to look at the theme of transfer and transformation of both energy and matter. And let's begin by making sure we understand what the term energy means and what the term matter means. Energy is the capacity to cause change or to perform work, okay? And it cannot be created or destroyed, but we do see that some energy, anytime it's transforming from one form to another, some of that energy will be lost in the form of heat. So it's not that you destroyed the energy, you're just losing it out into the atmosphere, basically. And then matter is, of course, anything with mass that takes up space. We'll be talking about that again as we explore chapter 2, and we're going to see that matter is composed of elements, which are composed of atoms. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more in the future. Okay, so when we're talking about this from a biological standpoint, the source of energy for our ecosystem is, of course, the sun. So we are all solar powered. Now, there's only a select group of organisms that can capture sunlight energy and transform it into biochemical energy, and those are our producers. They have to be photosynthetic organisms in order to capture sunlight and turn it into biochemical energy or transform it. So on land, this is primarily, the job of our plants. We also see in aquatic ecosystems, green algae and seaweeds are important producers for aquatic systems. Now, the producers are converting the solar energy into the biochemical energy. And when they do that, there will be some heat lost. And that energy then is consumed by an organism, which is called the consumer. So this would be, in this case, an animal that's going to eat the plant. And so it's taking the biochemical energy and nutrients that the plant made, and now it's incorporating it into the animal's body. And then very often there's another consumer that's going to consume that animal. And again, with each one of these transformations, some of that energy is going to be lost in the form of heat. So even if you're talking about a pure carnivore, like a lion that's only eating meat, the prey was eating a plant, and so you can still always tie back the energy for the ecosystem as coming from the sun. And then you're going to have a decomposer, which is going to be important in breaking down the nutrients and the energy from those consumers and from those producers and returning that matter back into the ecosystem. So what we're seeing here is that the matter itself, the components, the molecules, are cycling through the ecosystem. So they're changing form, but they're cycling through. And we see that energy is going to come into the ecosystem in the form of sunlight, and it's going to exit the ecosystem in the form of heat. So as we were going through each of those progressive changes and transformations, any energy that was exiting in the form of heat. Okay, and then our last biological theme are the interactions within and between systems. And this is something that we do get to explore this semester as we investigate the cell a little bit. And you'll get to explore it even more as you move into your AMP2. Excuse me, AMP2, it's not this class. You're like, what? Biology 2. Okay, so when we're talking about a system, we're talking about how you have all these pieces and parts that are working together for the ultimate outcome. So we can describe systems using sort of this philosophical phrase, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. So my best analogy for this is Legos. My daughter loves Legos. So we have this huge bag of all these Lego blocks, right? And I'm sure some of you also love Legos and have had in the past lots of Lego blocks. An individual Lego block or a pile of Lego blocks doesn't have a lot of value. It's just a pile of blocks, but you start connecting them together and you have, you know, a spaceship or a castle or, you know, a Lego friend's home or whatever it is. So you're taking all these pieces and parts and you're putting them together, and now you have something new and more meaningful than just a pile of Lego bricks. That's what we're talking about with systems. And what we're seeing with living things and with biology is that there's interactions constantly happening within a system and then between systems. This could be as simple as looking at, you know, say complex multicellular animals and looking at things like organ systems. So here's my wonderful drawing of the digestive system. Your pieces and parts here would be your organs, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine. So by themselves, they each have their own jobs and functions, but when you look at how they coordinate together in order to obtain nutrients from our food, then you're looking at something completely different. And then, of course, this system is interacting with other systems in our body. You can also think of your ecosystem in this context, right? So I'm going to let you guess what animals I have on my screen here, right? Let's see if I can make it. Nope. I don't know what just happened, but there we go. All right. So that's just my beautiful illustration of an ecosystem. But you all know that we can study how the plants and the animals and the bacteria are interacting with each other, and how, you know, we can just investigate the bird or we can just investigate the tree to see how it's having interactions within the organism itself. So these are our themes that we're talking about here. And that's it.